This is Barbara Crampton, and you're listening to Without Your Head.
Welcome to Inside Your Head. That's the wrong show. This is the station of decapitation without your head. And I'm Nasty Neil.
And I remain terrible, Troy.
Mm-hmm. During the quarantine here, I've recorded many interviews, so I'm losing track of what I'm doing. But we're joined by actor and filmmaker Larry Fessenden, and it's awesome to have him here because I'm a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, guys. Fantastic to be here.
Yes. So your newest movie, Depraved, which I got to see at Buffalo Dreams Fantastic Film Festival, which is a very long name. The festival, not Depraved. And it was. I'm a huge fan of Frankenstein, so it was awesome to see a modern Frankenstein. And yeah, I loved it. And first of all, great. First of all, I'll talk about it. Was what is it about Frankenstein? From what I understand, you're a big fan of Frankenstein as well. So what is it about Frankenstein that really appeals to you?
Well, like so many kids of my generation, I'm an older guy now, late 50s, I guess. I grew up in the 70s, and you'd see Frankenstein on television. And the original movie just blew my mind, and just the character design, the flat head, the bolts. I mean, none of it really made sense, but it was so iconic. Mm-hmm. And then, I was also surrounded by the Monsters and Famous Monsters of Filmland, which was a magazine that had a lot of these images. And I just loved the monster. And then, when I was older, I read the book, and it's famously slightly disappointing because it's not like the monster with the flat head. But, right. It has its own, cool vibe. It's really about being an outsider. So all these things over the years, and then you see the Christopher Lee, and then Robert De Niro, who I love because of Taxi Driver and 70s movies. Then he played Frankenstein. It was just too good to be true. So, that's a whole lifetime of excitement and love of this creature and this story, and then I just wanted to spit out my own version.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get what word do you think Alex was right? Alex Bro, the actor, plays the Frankenstein character, Adam, or the monster character. What made him right for that role?
Well, I wanted something very physical. I wanted you to look at his physique. I start him out, no clothes. He's got scars everywhere. He's bald. I mean, I really wanted it almost like a birth thing, but I wanted to emphasize the physicality, like, what does it really mean, sewn together by different body parts? So I was looking for an actor that would be really ripped. And, I saw an article about him in the Times, and he was a young up-and-coming actor. He'd been in a play, and I saw a picture of him, and I just thought he might be the guy. Then when I auditioned him, he had this really strange face and this whole strange quality. Also, he was originally a jock before he became an actor, and he had a real dedication, and I knew I could tell him to lose the weight and, just to really be disciplined. So all those things, plus, he had a really large brow. Everything about him was interesting, and his face, the thing about Karloff, the reason Karloff is so cool, not only the makeup by Jack Pierce, but Karloff's initial features are so, cool, and that was something I found in Bro. He had just high cheekbones, this really weird extended brow. So, it was sort of like I had to find something that was very special. I didn't want to just do it with makeup.
Yeah. Yeah, and the makeup does look, but you're right, though. I mean, he's the makeup enhances him. And I love the makeup, and you really do pay attention to the idea that he is sewn together, which I like.
Yeah.
Makeup
by Brian Spears and sorry, man, but makeup by Brian Spears and Peter Gerner. These are dudes I've worked with for over a decade, and they've done like 12 movies with my company, Glass Eye Picks, and it was a real challenge. It's funny, they've done so well doing movies with us that now they're fucking on Marvel TV shows and stuff.
Oh wow!
I say, Brian, you gotta come back. You gotta come back to the fold. Come on.
The kids have grown
very
up.
Sweet. Yeah, exactly. Come back to the sandbox where you started. But they really delivered. It was a little bit rushed in the whole thing, but it was a great collaboration. I love those guys, and they really took it to heart.
Yeah, I also like that he heals through the movie. That the scars, there's different levels. It's not just this. It makes sense over time. His scars are starting to heal.
Yeah, and then his hair grows, and he almost looks normal. But the idea was to implant in the audience's mind, like, oh, he's totally weird. He's sort of a freak. Like, he is sewn together. But then he's humanized. And then, like, halfway through the movie, something happens so that you have a new experience with him. He sort of comes back vengeful. And so it's just trying to capture all the different versions of the emotion I had as a kid and, the emotion that the story has. He's both an innocent, and then he becomes a threat, and then he's, an outsider, and then he's a danger. All those things are in the book. They're in the movies, basically. So it's fun to try to capture all of this in my own story.
Yeah, I mean, Frankenstein's always been my favorite of the Universal monster movies, and it's sad because he's not really a villain. He's an outsider here, but he can't live in our world because he's dangerous to everybody.
Exactly, and if you do make it through to the end of my somewhat long movie, that's the end. Is just he's banished, and you realize whatever's happened and however much we liked him as the audience, sort of following his journey. That was sort of what I did differently. Was all his journey. I'm not really with the doctor. Most of the stories start with the doctor and getting the bodies, but I start with waking up and you're the monster. And then, but by the end, you realize you just won't fit. And that's kind of, in a way, how we all feel. It seems to me. So the idea was you could really relate to that true archetype of the Frankenstein monster, is that we're all born. We don't know why we were born into this family or this situation, this poverty level. And then, you try to fit in, and if you make a few mistakes, you'll be an outcast, and that's sort of the journey the movie takes.
Mm-hmm. You said earlier that some of the things were rushed a little bit. So was there anything that you didn't get to film for Depraved that you wanted to?
No, but, look, I tried to make this movie for years, and I went to Hollywood. I said, guys, you got to do this. This is going to be so cool. I don't know if I achieved this element, but in any case, I said a sexy Frankenstein, a modern Frankenstein. He's, we're going to relate to him. It's going to be so great. You totally blew it with the Van Helsing movies. I mean, those are okay on their way, but they're not really, you don't feel for the monster and so on.
No.
Blah, 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 blah. I tried for fucking 5-10 years, almost 7 years, to make this movie. Eventually, I just said, I got to do this somehow. So I went in with a lower budget, and that's what I mean by rushed. Ironically, I had all the time in the world, and yet when I finally said we're going to make it, I had like 3 months, and then I told Brian and Peter, come on guys, let's do it, and everything sort of had to happen quickly. It's all fine. I'm not complaining, but that's a reality. And then even in making the film, there's a few things I would have done differently or better, but budget is a problem. And I'm not a guy who bitches about budget, because I believe in, you want to make a movie, you've got to have the balls to do it and to get out there. But, let's be honest, there are restrictions. So, some of that got in my way, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. No, I loved it. And Zeb Godin, who's a filmmaker, is going to be on the show later on tonight. He wanted me to tell you that Depraved moved him. He was also in Buffalo, and he wants to know if the monster having a cataract is an homage to Christopher Lee and Curse of Frankenstein.
100%. You tell him he's got it right on the nose. Yeah, there's a lot of tributes in the makeup to different, of the various iconic monsters, and the white eye was for Christopher Lee for sure. And then there's a little scar on his forehead. That's for Karloff, and different stuff. What I didn't do is some of the goofy shit, like the De Niro makeup and couple of other Frankensteins. They just have scars all over the face, and you're like, what doctor would do this? Like, you're making your little creation, and you're like, I know, I'm going to just cut up his face so he's going to look completely ridiculous. I mean, it's so it's funny because with Brian, my makeup guys, there were certain things I would actually refrain from doing, even though they might be cool. I was like, it's too silly. We can't do that. The other thing is we couldn't have the scar on the front of the head because the way you would do a brain transplant is you would cut around the back and fold the flesh forward. So, it's just funny sort of trying to find a balance between wanting your monster to look like a monster, but trying to be a little realistic to the situation.
Yeah. So what are your favorite adaptations of Frankenstein?
Well, I have to say Frankenstein. And then, and a lot of people say Bride of Frankenstein is a better movie, but I always felt it was a little more campy, and I liked the makeup, but I don't love that. I don't love the monster talking. So it's really Frankenstein. And then, the weird thing is I like some of the later ones, like when Glenn Strange played the monster. That was kind of what I grew up as a kid. He was a little more robotic, and it had a vibe. So I liked all the black and whites, all those. And then Christopher Lee wasn't my favorite. Didn't understand that makeup. What I loved was Peter Cushing as the doctor.
Oh yeah, he's the man.
And then there was a weird one in the 70s called Frankenstein: The True Story with Michael Sarrazin. I think
that's a good one.
Yeah, I love that one
really
too.
Epic at the time. It seemed so epic, and they were really taking the story seriously. And that has this aspect that I use in my movie where the doctor's trying to teach the monster to. So that's a big influence. And also that one, he comes out, he looks great, and then he slowly decays. And I don't know. I felt that was very powerful. When I was a teenager, that seemed cool, and it was on TV and all that.
Yeah.
I love James Mason in that one too.
Exactly.
Polidori,
and that's where I got my Polidori. I mean, we all know it comes from the original Frankenstein, and he wrote the vampire story. But yeah, it's from the James Mason Polidori, and that is where. So, and then the De Niro one intrigued me because, as I say, I love De Niro, and it was. It's not the worst movie. It seems slightly silly, but And then I had loved the Coppola Dracula because that was pageantry, but it really worked, even though I always say it's one of the only movies I've ever wanted to re-edit. I think it's lopsided. Like, I would like to see more at the end when they're fighting in the snow, but that's a cool movie, and the design and the acting, whereas the Frankenstein was a little off. But then remember, there's, movies like Reanimator or Ex Machina. There's so many Frankenstein movies. It's really hard to talk about.
Yeah. But Reanimator is an amazing movie. Well, one of my favorite scenes in any movie. I was just wearing my Reanimator shirt earlier.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I just made a movie with Barbara Crampton, so...
Oh, nice.
I love to tease her that, we all had a hard-on for her. It's a little Me Too warning, but I can tease her about that.
Right.
I played her husband in the movie. We just finished shooting in Mississippi, so we had fun.
Oh, that's awesome! Yeah. It's the greatest ever. I think maybe there's others I'm not aware of, but it's in my mind it's the greatest severed head oral sex scene I've seen in a movie. I have to agree. One other Frankenstein we're not mentioning, which is of course Young Frankenstein. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It's funny you mentioned one time I went to see the original Frankenstein in 35 millimeter theater up in Boston. And on the way home, I was taking an Uber. And it was a young, probably in his 20s. And he's like, I was telling him I went to see. And he's like, oh, yeah, I saw the real old one once. And he started explaining it. And I was like, oh, my God, he's talking about Young Frankenstein.
It's so brutal. It's brutal. Yeah, it dates you. But, in a weird way, it's not the worst thing. It's similar to when some of my friends say their first Frankenstein movie was Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. And you're like, oh, shit, man. But it's kind of sweet. You know, these are very loving tributes. I mean, that movie isn't bad. As you know, that was the second time that Lugosi played Dracula, believe it or not. So, and, you know, in a way, and then they had Lon Chaney always play Wolfman. So whatever, that movie isn't the worst. It's kind of great. And as for Young Frankenstein is clearly a great tribute to the whole scene.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's a great movie. Mm-hmm. So I also like the posters for Depraved. I sent you a thing earlier, and I have it on my Facebook, because the one that you had during the festival run anyway has a big scar on it. And it was very similar to my actual scar from surgery. And you told me you off air. So 4 years ago, I had emergency surgery to remove 14 inches of my colon. And then I had a colostomy bag for a long time. It was very bad. I don't recommend that to anyone. And if you're thinking about doing that, but last year, or I guess it was the end of 2018. Was from that surgery, my stomach muscle had all these holes in it, and so I had to get like reconstructive surgery on my stomach. And so anyway, I have a lot of scars. Is what that is from. Yeah. And I'm also part beef. I'm part cow. They spread my stomach muscle out like an Asian fan, the surgeon said, and then they put cow tissue over top of that.
Oh, wow. Very cool, man. Well, so you are sort of a little Frankenstein yourself.
Exactly.
Yep, that's true.
But the scar on the poster, my DP and longtime comrade, you know, he works at my company, and I basically, when I didn't get any money, I said, well, you're going to shoot it. And so we were collaborating on, you know, building the set and working on everything, and then one night, he went home and just had a lot of stomach pain, and his girlfriend made him go to the hospital. And they said basically his stomach had exploded and was in the toxins were getting in his whole body. So he went into emergency surgery. They cut him up from the navel up to his chest, and that he sent me a picture because he know I'm a slightly diseased fella, and I said, "Hey man, can we use that as a poster?"
That's why it did look like yours that day.
Yeah, it's just similar because I was becoming my colon perforated and my body's becoming septic, and that's why they did the emergency surgery.
Yeah, same deal, man. Fucking scary, and you know, he literally had to recover, and the whole shoot, he was scared to lift the camera, you know, and he just slowly got his mojo back over the course of the shoot. But it was a labor of love. And then I had the terrible back pain when we were making it. So we were a couple of cripples making the picture.
And that's to the atmosphere, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the right move. You know, we're making a movie about the physicality of the monster and all those scars. And we shot in February in New York City and in Brooklyn, Gowanus, and it was the loft we were in wasn't heated, and so the creep. And I'd made the actor lose all this weight, so he was just bone thin, and so he was suffering. So there was a lot of suffering, which is the way I like it. Art has suffering.
Yeah.
So it's good times.
Yeah, and from that last surgery, part of it was I also lost my belly button when they sewed me all back. So it's also like Adam, because Adam doesn't have a belly button, and Adam is the name of Frankenstein here.
Oh, yeah, wow, man.
Yeah, it's all connected. Yeah. I recently interviewed James LeGros, who, when I mentioned you were coming, I didn't know this beforehand, but he said he's a good friend of yours, and he started saying that he doesn't like Frankenstein, the book, but he was a big fan of Depraved. And he had an interesting take on what he thought the Frankenstein novel was about.
What did he say?
He said in his mind, it's about racism, because they all look down on Frankenstein, the monster, because of his looks.
Well, I think that's very, very profound, and I believe there's an image in Depraved. In fact, he says it. He says, "And now they hunt me, and now they chase me, and I have the German shepherds running after him as he runs through the fields at the end." And I believe I was also referencing that, because the Frankenstein story is about being an outsider and being victimized by society and told that you're not good enough, that you're so. I mean, good for Legros. I agree with him there, and I think it is in the book, and it's certainly available to our modern sensibility as we reinterpret things, through a modern eye. I think that's a very real way to talk about it. Of course, if you were coming from another perspective, you say it's a Jesus story. There's a lot of crucifixion imagery, even in Bride of Frankenstein. He's put up on a pillar, and all of this. So it's really about persecution of the outsider, and and this is why the story is so powerful. Is that we know as a society we're guilty of persecuting the outsider, and some of at some point in our lives, we all feel like the outsider, and then at another point, we know the guilt of being the persecutor. So all of that, it's all there.
Yeah. Did you go to any of the festival screenings?
I went to. It's a funny question because I probably didn't go to a lot of them, but I certainly went to the premiere, and I don't sit through my movies, which is probably bad because I probably learned that they're too long or they're boring, or I end up at the bar and I'm better off just sort of it's so I don't know what audiences think. I come in after and talk about it and hope people enjoyed it, but
why is that you don't sit through them? Is it just because you don't want to sit through a movie, or?
Well, I mean, I actually would like to watch my movie. I'm not one of those people, people who say, "Oh, I never watched that movie. I don't like that movie." No, I love all my movies. I mean, they're my children, flawed as they are. But I get really antsy watching my movies with a crowd, and I don't know what it is. It's just sort of a little bit of self-loathing. Although, as I say, I like the work. I know I did my best, and I'm not one of those people who dismisses. I'm very loyal to my films, but can't actually watch them.
No, I get it. You said they are your children. It is weird to watch your children with people and thinking like if they like them or not.
Yeah, exactly.
You've left them with strangers. How are they going to react?
I leave my kids with strangers and go to the bar.
That's it. I like that.
You're a very good father. Yeah,
I like it.
Do you always edit your own movies?
I have since a movie I made called No Telling. I edited that with a friend of mine, and I found the experience excruciatingly annoying. And the thing is I really feel that it's all part of the process, the making of the film and then the editing. I don't really see it as a distinction, and I don't like the vibe that, an adult has to come into the room and set everything straight. I really feel that it's an ongoing process, you experiencing the material and then shaping it. Now, it doesn't mean I don't take advice during the edit process, but even that, I got to be honest, I'm getting more and more stubborn as I get older. I just feel like the arts are something, I know it's film and it's a commercial enterprise and you're trying to please a larger audience to make some money, but the truth is like the valuable film, if you're working in this level where I am, the low budget, then the greatest thing you can offer is something very, very personal and very specific And that's the thing that should be commercial, which is to say that should be valuable because it'll be unexpected for an audience. You know, if you're going to make part of the Godzilla franchise, you got to listen to the suits. Although even then, I actually think the best blockbusters are because there's a personal hand behind it. So honestly, no, I'm sorry. I'm just going to throw down and say movies, the art should be coming from an individual. You know, you don't make it alone. It's a huge team of people.
Sure.
But, you know, the idea of the edit, but at the same time, I have great respect for editors, and I've been an editor for other people, and then I'm like, God, you sure did need an editor. There's no rules. There's no rules. It's just my own way of making films. I really need to feel like I'm communicating with my material and I'm in there molding the clay. You know, it's just the way I like to work.
Mm-hmm. You said about like listening to the suits, and we talked about this with the previous guest. Do you think there's like a contrast between, you know, a filmmaker, an artist, and the suits? Because I would think like someone on the corporate side isn't necessarily artistic or creative.
No, and I think it's worse and worse. Or, you know, whatever. Look, another conversation that often happens on these kind of shows is like, I think horror's in a good place. We have everything from the art horror guys like Hereditary Dude and Babadook and, you know, It Follows. All that's good. And then we have, you know, there's lots of different, and then, you know, we have, what's his fucking name? You know, Jason Blum doing whatever he does. And so, and then we just had Invisible Man. I mean, I think we're in a good place as far as there's interesting material coming out, Bliss, and all kinds of cool movies. So not really complaining. But I do think when you finally end up with the suits, they're always trying to second guess. In fact, they should leave it to the artists because the artists are doing good work.
Right.
So it's a little weird. I mean, they almost insert themselves unnecessarily into these things and get in the way of something fresh that the audience is going to like. But, you know, I don't know. It's a complicated business, and movies have become more genericized, even while, thank goodness, there's an indie world going on. I don't know, man. It's ever changing, and it's never going to be a perfect relationship between the money people and the artists. Horror is the best place to do this, though, because horror is the genre. It's not about getting great stars. It's really about the power of that genre, which is about the power of like the emotion of horror, and then also the weirdness of like creating visuals that, you know, aren't mainstream. So in a way, the suits have the least understanding of that genre, which is good, as it should be.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I like the festival so much, because you see a lot of stuff that doesn't really fit into any genre, or they might be horror related, but they're just a bizarre. You know, it's not. It's hard to say what genre like a specific movie is in a lot of the festivals, and like you don't really see that anywhere else. So that's fun for me.
I totally agree, man. I totally agree. Movie festivals like Fantasia, Fright Fest, Fantastic Fest, you know, they really celebrate offbeat movies, and that's, you know, you're right. It's like the umbrella is horror, but, you know, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. And let's face it, Depraved isn't a scary movie. It's about, you know, sort of existential horror and whatever. So I'm lucky to be even included there, you know. And yet you're still the bastard child of real movies. You'll never get into a real festival where the real people make the real movies. Fucking hell.
What is it about horror movies that interested you?
Well, it's more than interests me. It's just how I'm wired, you know. I just see the world as a horrible place. I think I've been proved right in the last 3 months. Hello.
Yeah.
It's a scary fucking nightmare coming to get you virus kind of a world. And it's funny, I've been, you know, putting up my movies and the movies I've produced on my website, and just saying, oh, check it out. You can stream it here. Quarantine Stream, we call it. And the reality is all our films, they're all cautionary tales about overstepping and nature fighting back, so it's all just like so much this world that we're in now, which isn't to take any pleasure in it, but it's because horror is about like saying, people wake up, oh my God, we're just this far away from something horrible, and now we're in it. Bad news.
What have you been doing during quarantine?
I'm writing my werewolf movie.
Oh, interesting. It's a good time to do it.
Down with that.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. And then, I'm producing my son's film as a war movie. We're in post-production, which is awesome to be wrapping that up, working on the score and stuff. And then, we have a radio play called Tales from Beyond the Pale. We do a podcast, so every week we drop a new one. They're old, I shouldn't say new, but if your audience hasn't heard of them, there's a wealth. Amazing. Have you guys heard of Tales from Beyond?
I haven't, but I like the idea of it. You said it's audio play, so it's kind of like an old school, radio drama.
Oh, you have us right then.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dudes, let me just say, for your audiences, there's 25 available already. Every week we put out a new one. These are something we've been doing for almost 10 years. We do them live at festivals and in the studio. We have people like Vincent D'Onofrio, Ron Perlman, Doug Jones, Tony Todd, all kinds of crazy great actors. Barbara Cranston's in a lot of them. And they're really, really rich. Everyone is different. And they're half hour, and you just pop it on, and you just get a deep immersion, great sound effects, and everyone is different. Everything from sci-fi to murder to slightly lighter fare. I really recommend it. Tales from Beyond the Pale. And the idea is that we just woke up one day and said we love audio plays, and we know so many filmmakers who aren't getting their movies financed. Let's invite them to do an audio play, and we got a lot of excitement. This is my friend, me and Glenn McQuaid, another filmmaker I work with.
I love it. Yeah, because I love listening to the old audio, like with Vincent Price and whatnot. We used to play them on the stream once in a while, the old ones on like archive.org. And so I love the idea of doing a new ones, in that vein. That's I will actually check that.
Check it out. I promise you that you'll find something out of 25 and more coming. You got to find something you like.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good. Jason here on Facebook, he says, watched him recently in Jugface last night. He is so awesome. Do you prefer directing or acting?
Oh, that's so sweet. Jugface is a really cool, strange movie. I like to direct because I like to put the entire vision across, but acting is where I started, and then I got drawn into directing and really wanting to tell the whole story. But I have a great affinity for actors, and I still think of myself as an actor. So hard to say. It's all a big soup, and you want to get in there and be creative and be supportive of the vision. So, I like it all.
He also adds, does being an actor inspire the choices you make when directing others?
Well, definitely. I'll tell you, this is sort of a bit of a side joke, but it's also true. Like when I want to do a sex scene in a movie, direct it, I can always tell them, well, go see Habit. I was naked in half the film, and, listen, I know what it's like. It's embarrassing, but go for it. So it's a real value to be able to speak to actors, having done it, having really done a lot of different types of roles, from very small ones where that you're just a little side piece to being a lead. But but maybe the real answer is I like to act and direct and do everything at once, which I have done in my film called Habit. It's an old movie now, but that's where I'm literally doing everything. And that's kind of truly immersive. It's a great experience as an artist, you know.
Yeah. Can you say anything about the werewolf movie you're writing?
No.
Besides it being a werewolf? All right.
How about that it's going to be so cool?
All right, fair enough. It would be bad if you're like, man, it's really going to suck.
Yeah, it's going to be mediocre. That's what I'm going. I'm going mediocre.
I'm gunning for middle of the road. We're hoping it works out.
I think I have a real handle on mediocrity. I'm very excited. I shouldn't even be telling because I never like to broadcast, but I am kind of excited. And when I was little, I used to say, the only way I ever made a movie is by telling everyone I was going to make it. And then they'd be sort of like, yeah, and then I would sort of feel obliged. So maybe that's what I'm doing with you guys.
All right, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, we won't talk about that movie specifically, but what are some of your favorite werewolf movies of past?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, that's one reason I'm presuming to make one. I mean, I'm not sure I have too many. Obviously, Wolfman. The first one, or whatever it's called, and then all the times Lon Chaney showed up. And then, I don't know, it's a tough thing. Obviously, there's The Howling, and then there's American Werewolf in London. But even those, there's issues there. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, it's weird you bring up American Werewolf in London because that's my favorite werewolf movie, but I actually don't like the look of the werewolf in it. I like the werewolf on two legs in like the Wolfman. But up until he becomes a werewolf, I really like the movie. Yeah.
Dude, that's my thing. Is that, well, I don't want to give too much away.
Sure.
But I'm not a big snout werewolf guy. I'll tell you, I like the design of the Benicio del Toro werewolf, although I thought the teeth were too big. But there's some beautiful stuff in that movie. It's just
that's a great look.
Yeah.
There are other problems, unfortunately. But like the transformation scene in the asylum or whatever when he's in the chair is fucking beautiful. And they did CGI, but very respectful, and the makeup comes in eventually. And I have a great affection for sections of that movie. And, that's the thing. I'll say this. If you're a horror fan, a lot of the time you're just editing your own movie because...
It's true.
Because there's so many bad things or missteps, or you don't quite know why, or it's boring. That's funny. When you're little, it's like, where's the monster? I don't know why we're going through all this scene. Although, of course, the irony is then I grew up and made incredibly boring horror movies, I admit it. Because now I'm into, like, atmosphere, which as a kid I was like, oh my God, it's so fucking annoying. Just show the monster. Anyway.
I always had a soft spot for Silver Bullet. I liked it.
Yeah, Silver Bullet, and then... now, you see, I don't know. It's a tough... did you guys see Late Phases? I produced that.
Yeah, I like Late Phases. It's an interesting take.
It's got a good vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Goofy-looking monster. Those guys were so excited. But at least it's distinct.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cool werewolf book that just came out with every damn werewolf movie made, and you're really like, wow, it's kind of it's not a lot. I mean, there's an Oliver Reed movie, of course.
Yeah, that one's real good too. I forgot about that one.
That's cool. And it's funny because I am writing this. I'm thinking about Werewolf of London, the famous one. Yeah, where apparently Henry Hull didn't want to put on too much makeup, which is sort of why that's like not quite. Anyway, then there's a movie called Mark of the Vampire, which has a werewolf in it, which is like kind of awesome. And there's Teenage Werewolf was another makeup that I liked, from 1954, whatever. So it's all very interesting. Well, I mean, there's Dog Soldiers. Let's not go crazy. There's some great werewolf movies.
Yeah, that's a good movie. And those are really cool looking werewolves.
They're very cool.
Yeah.
But I like the limber Wolfman kind of werewolf, you know.
I do too.
Instead of the sort of like perfectly wolf on stilts with the big.
Mm-hmm.
And then my least favorite is like from the Twilight when they're turned into wolves.
Oh
yeah, I don't
same
like
thing with True Blood.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not a fan of that either.
I feel so ripped off when they just like CGI into wolves. But wait, what about what movies I don't watch is it Underworld? Like
when they have like guns. I don't like my monsters that have weapons, like a big gun. I think it's kind of silly.
Yeah, I agree. Then you're into another zone. That's not the same.
They don't. They are a weapon. They don't need weapons. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Also, that's like they're not. That's when that's why Universal doesn't know how to do the dark universe because they don't really understand horror. Horror is about like, oh shit, I'm a werewolf, so I'm having this terrible existential problem, like I'm an alcoholic or I'm I don't know. It's a psychological thing. It has to do with life and death and identity. These are the themes of horror. It's not about like badass shooting or
right.
Anyway, whatever. These are my problems. That's why I'm not.
But it makes them hard to put them to make like your Avengers out of the Universal monsters.
Exactly. And I think actually with the Invisible Man that I guess Jason Blum will sort of start pushing a slightly new agenda forward, and it may be better for the Universal movies. Although I like the Invisible Man, but in a way I was annoyed that it was a suit. It's kind of like we're talking about. I like the old, where
it's one of the greatest villains.
Superheroes.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I said it's one of the greatest villains, the original Invisible Man, because he's so gleeful and like his evil.
Basil rules in that. He's just so great.
It's amazing. It's so good.
When his mind really starts going and he's doing like look, even the moon is afraid of me. It's just awesome.
It is. It's awesome. And it's so much more existential than like a man invents a high-tech suit and goes and beats his girlfriend. I mean, the movie was better than it might have been, but when I heard it was coming out, I was excited because I did like that guy's other film, whatever the hell it was called. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure but it's I thought
Reboot.
okay. Oh, I know what you mean. I forget too. I'm gonna look it up because I had him on the show for that movie. But I'd like that too.
Great. Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's a really underrated movie. Lee Winnell is the director, by the way. Upgrade. I had to cheat. Look it up.
Reboot.
Whatever. It's close enough. Yeah.
Shoot me now. Upgrade is a great movie, by the way.
Yeah, it is very good. I love that movie. I think that's a really underrated movie. People should check out.
I agree.
But I thought the Invisible Man himself was the least interesting part of the movie.
I know. Oh, so frustrating. Still, I think it's a better trend than The Mummy by Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's setting the bar pretty low, though.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know. It's tough because, I actually thought The Wolfman was a fine effort as a Hollywood film. And as I say, there seemed to be some heart there. They clearly got lost. But anyway,
I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people said it was. I enjoyed the movie, Wolfman.
I liked it. And actually, it's one of those movies I watch all the time over and over. And still get annoyed, but there's enough there that I enjoy, and I do like the effects, and they were trying to do practical, and there's a lot of charms. Whatever.
Yeah, it was weird because I mentioned about the Uber driver who thought the original Frankenstein was young Frankenstein. I remember when the newer Mummy came out, people were saying on my Facebook that it was a remake of the Brendan Fraser movies. Oh my God!
Good night, nerd. I mean,
that's when you want to hide away.
Yeah.
Those movies were enjoyable in the way of obviously the Indiana Jones stuff, but it has nothing to do with horror.
Yeah.
It's just like a whole other zone. And then remember when, I already referenced it once, like the Van Helsing, that movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was like a sort of a mind fuck from whenever that period was.
Uh-huh.
The only thing cool in that was the lady vampires, the sirens or whatever, the ones that flew around.
Yeah, I remember when it was coming out, there was all this talk about the Frankenstein, and it was so cool, and he was going to get like his own show, and then I saw it, and I was like, oh my God, he's so lame, but it never went anywhere.
I know, and he had the little blue beating heart or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, it's very.
Oh yeah.
How many ways can they fuck this shit up? It's so unbelievable.
It was kind of like what was the other one where they they get the big group of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah,
because I heard that about the Mr. Hyde in that, and then I saw it, and I'm like, oh my God, I loathe the Mr. Hyde in this. He's horrible.
I know, he's like the Hulk.
Yeah,
he was this huge thing. It had nothing to do with. By the way, guys, you want to talk? It's funny. I'd rather talk about Jekyll and Hyde remakes or whatever they're called. The point is the 1932 Jekyll and Hyde. Tell your audiences to watch that. Such an amazing movie and so vicious. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, those, I think all the movies from that era, like they still hold up, and
you can't beat them.
Yeah, but if you ever read the comic book for League of Extraordinary Gentlemen that the movie's based on, it's so much better than the movie.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
The Invincible Man in it's great, where he's like this old perverted guy who's doing stuff with women in like the nunnery, and they think it's God coming to them because they can't see him, and I don't know, maybe you can't do that in a movie, but I loved it in the comic. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic! Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I love it.
Got to get the heart of the matter. Yeah.
Exactly. So I know Jenn Wexler is a producer on Depraved, and you were in her movie The Ranger. So what did you think of The Ranger, and then what do you think of Jenn Wexler?
Oh my God! Well, Jenn is much more than either of those things. She came to Glass Eye Pix, and I'm really bad with dates, but 5 years ago, and she ended. I'm always telling everybody I'm going to close Glass Eye. That's my company. We make movies, and but she really gave me a shot in the arm. She was so ambitious, and she wanted so hard to learn. And she was mentored by Peter Polk, who had produced a lot of movies like Stakeland and House of the Devil, The Innkeepers, and a lot of our earlier films. And then she kind of took over, and she was my producer for 5 years. And we made Like Me and Most Beautiful Island and Psychopaths, Darling. So she really learned the ropes and slowly became excited to direct her own films. So I said, when you're ready, Jen, you'll have the full support of the company. And so then she made The Ranger. It was just a great experience, everything from casting to designing the movie. We shot upstate where we make all our films, and she was well aware of how we like to do it. And, it was sweet. She invited me to be in the film, but mostly it was a producing collaboration, and I really loved seeing Jenn find her way. And, we found Chloe Levine. I'd been in a movie called Transfiguration. It's a really cool, subtle vampire movie. And I told Jenn Chloe was amazing. And we all met in Austin at a festival. And so eventually Chloe became the lead in The Ranger. And then she's briefly in Depraved as well. Mm-hmm. So it was sweet because Jenn's sort of final thing at Glass Eye was producing my film almost as the sort of concluding bookend to coming into the company. Mm-hmm. So we had a great run of it, and now she's on her own. She's trying to direct, and it's not easy to do what she's trying to do for any of us. But we had a great run. Yeah.
Yeah, I met her at Boston Underground Film Festival. When it was The Ranger, maybe not the premiere, but they were showing it at Boston Underground Film Festival. Really cool. And I met her again at Fright Fest in Frightmare in England, in London. But yeah, it was, that's a crazy festival. It's huge. I kind of prefer ones that's just one screen, but but there's so many people. It was very cool.
Yeah. Well, it's a great festival, and the Brits are so sweet, and they're so dedicated, and they all take their holiday to go to that.
Oh yeah,
festival, and they're such drinkers. It's all really quite charming, I must say. I've been there a couple times, and it's a great festival. Yeah. Anyway, The Ranger was really fun for us. Became a great launch for Jenn, and was really well received, and a lot of great people involved. Heather Buckley and Andrew Van Den Houten, other producers on it, and just the whole punk vibe, and it was great. Yeah, really cool. Yeah.
That was that in Hunter Mountain, Louis film?
Yep. Well, that's where they they had to hike up to do the scene, on the tower with the Ranger where his hangout is. And Jenn was, I don't know, this is the whole thing. My company, Glass Eye, we really believe in kind of the Herzog model that you have to suffer making the movies. And she made everybody hike up. There was no way to drive. So just a great image of everybody sort of carrying the cameras and the equipment and the actors all trudging up the hill to do those scenes. And then a lot of it was shot I have a place up here near Kingston, New York, and we've made a lot of movies here, and we use this house. It's in my movie Wendigo. We used it for Depraved, for The Ranger, for Bitter Feast, for Stakeland. A lot of our movies shot right around here. Good little community.
Yeah, I've been to Hunter Mountain a few times because Kevin Van Hentenryck from Basket Case movies. After he did Basket Case, he's a stonemason up in there, and he does. We had him on the show, and he talked about he has a free class every summer. So I was like, well, I have to go and learn stone carving from Kevin Van Hentenryck, and so I went up there and I carved Belial into stone, which was very exciting.
Oh, dude, that's so cool. I actually love that. I have a movie called Bluestone that
right, that's what you use up there. That's what he carves in the Bluestone.
Absolutely, man. It's fantastic. I'm a big fan of the stone arts, so that's cool to hear.
Yeah, it's weird because no one in that area, they just know him as the town mason, so nobody knew, that he was in these weird horror movies back in the day. It's very fun.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah, he's a really great guy. Yeah, we're still here when that came out. That was my favorite horror movie that year. That was Barbara Crampton. That too. Yeah, was that the first time you worked with Barbara Crampton?
It was, I believe, and then just Barbara's such a bright spirit, so positive, so cool, and she was so committed in that movie, and really deeply upset, and she had interviewed people who had lost their kids, so she was very committed, taking it seriously, and yet always so fun, and it was a really good experience. You know, people love to say it was very cold. You know, we were in upstate New York, way upstate. And, you know, the house was heated only by the fireplaces. But it was a great community, and Ted Kagan is a really warm, caring director. And then Travis Stevens was a producer. So it felt like a great motley crew, and it was a fun experience. And then I went on to work with Barbara, and she was in a couple of the Tales from Beyond the Pale. You know, once you get to know Barbara, she's always stays in touch and is a good pal. And then, like 4 years ago, she sent me a script and said, "I want you to play my husband." And I said, "That's so sweet." And then nothing really happened, and you know, months and then years went by. And she checked in with me now and again. She even asked me if I could think of another writer to help on it and all this. And then, like, in November, she said, "We got the money. Do you still want to do it?"
Oh, awesome.
And I was like, "Wow." So I went up, we went to Mississippi in February, and we shot this movie, Jacob's Wife. And the director is Travis Stevens, who was the producer on We Are Still Here. So it's sort of a family atmosphere, and yeah, we're in post-production. I don't know what.
Oh, cool. He's a really nice guy, too. I met him last year. We actually stayed at the same hotel during Boston Underground Film Festival because he had his film, The Girl on the Third Floor, I think it's called. That was a premiere. Yeah, he's really good guy.
Yeah, so we just had a blast shooting for a month in Mississippi, a vampire movie. I think I can say that.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, we will. Well, maybe no one listens to this, so no one knows. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Everything's secret between us. Don't worry.
Yeah. Are we even on the radio? Or are we just talking on the phone? I don't know what's going on.
Bill just calls up people. We shoot the shit for him.
This is a big scam for us to.
It's okay, guys. I'm having a great time.
That's all that matters. Yeah.
Yep.
At the end of the day. Yeah. But you mentioned, the Wolfman a few times, and is that why you got the Wolfman toy at the beginning of Wendigo, the little action figure? You're a big fan of Wolfman?
Well, I'm a big fan of the Wolfman. Mm-hmm. And also in that, it's like, he's fighting with like a robot man. So it's sort of like that physical, the way we see ourselves. Are we the future where we're going to be robots, or are we the visceral animal, instinct? Like which part of humanity is going to, prevail or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, that's what that's all about.
Yeah, and that's on Shudder right now, I think.
Wendigo, I think it is. Yeah, I love Shudder. They're very supportive, and actually, I've been there from the beginning a lot. I know Sam. He's one of the programmers and one of the early, consultants there. And anyway, the point is that a lot of the Glassline movies were there early on. It was fun to watch Shudder sort of come into its own over the years.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it too. It's because you see a lot of stuff there that you're not going to see anywhere else.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like it's a real treasure hunt. It's a service to horror and genre fans to be able to see unexpected gems, and that's because of like Sam Zimmerman is his name. It's a real curatorial effort. I mean, obviously it's become more successful, so it's got other agendas, but there's still that element going on where really trying to bring people to unexpected material.
Yeah, it's a good mix of like a lot of older stuff that people might not have seen, and then like a lot of stuff I see on the festivals, and it's cool for them to find a platform at home. And then a lot of foreign stuff that I probably wouldn't be able to get to see otherwise.
Yeah, it's really very special. It's cool, man.
Yeah. And of course, Joe Bob Briggs.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Bob. Come on.
So when I mentioned you're coming on a lot of... I'm sorry. He has, yeah. It was very emotional. When he first did that first run, and then the very last episode, he does this big emotional speech about it's like his final time ever doing it, and like it almost makes you cry. And then it was a big hit, so he kept doing them.
Yeah,
and then he's back. What the fuck?
Yeah.
But
leave for a little while.
I remember Joe Bob when he was just Prince, I think, unless I'm misunderstanding. But I mean, I remember him as just way back in the day. I don't know, 10 years ago or something.
Yeah,
but
yeah, and something that I mentioned about the Kevin Van Hentenryck going up and doing the stone carving, and when he did Basket Case, people even told me like he's saying the same stuff like you said about Kevin Van Hentenryck. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then when I had him on, he said he actually watched my videos with Kevin for some research for what Kevin was doing after Basket Case, and I was like, "Wow, I've really made it."
That's pretty.
Joe Bob used the video money for research. He didn't give me any money.
Cool.
It was cool.
Well, that's what's cool about the horror genre. You know, there is it's really a very warm group of people who care about this offbeat sort of somewhat this macabre stuff. But there's a warmth to it. You know, that's why the festivals are very charming, you know, and people are really dedicated and, you know, guys like yourself are part of the community. And, you know, I grew up with Tony Timponi and Mike Gingold from Fangoria, and we would all go to festivals, or we'd, you know, show up at the same conventions and stuff. And, you know, everybody's doing their thing. Some people are making the movies. Some people are commenting or have, you know, podcasts or magazines. I don't know, but it is a community. Everybody sort of has an affection for this, the dark arts. And we all know, like the outside world thinks it's all creepy shit, but we all know it's really, it's a way of expressing, you know, deeper things about just life as scary and awesome, you know, in so many ways, and monsters and all this good stuff, which everybody thinks is freaky, but it's actually very consoling to the community.
Yeah, I agree. And it's I remember I was at a convention, I forget where it was. And the taxi driver was taking us to the hotel, and we told him we were at a this was before Uber, going to a horror movie convention, and he said, "Oh, that's good that they put all those guys together. It's like so they don't go out and kill people." And I was just like, "What the hell?" Like I don't even know how to answer.
Yeah.
The rest of the city's saved tonight.
It's so perfect, man. Whereas actually, we're the only sane people. It's all the other fucking maniacs.
Yeah.
That's the real truth.
But yeah, the festival's
that
cool.
Guy probably had a body in the back of his trunk.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I didn't want to say anything. I was like, it's no use getting into an argument with, so I'm just get us to the hotel, and I'll agree with you that, yeah, we'd just be out killing everybody otherwise. Yeah, it was very funny. Very strange as well. But yeah, the festival's like, because when I started doing the festivals, they're so amazing because, you know, afterwards, the directors and the filmmakers and then people just go in there watching the movies, and I was there as press. Everyone, you know, gets together afterwards because they all have the same love of these weird movies, and just everyone is equal talking to each other about films. It's a really great experience.
Yeah, it's so true, man. So cool. Have you been to Fantasia?
I have not been to Fantasia.
Well, you'd enjoy it. I mean, it's another one of those very affirming. I mean, the only thing that's weird is it goes on for like 3 weeks, but you can drop in anytime and get a real charge just for a couple of days. It's a good one.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
they're all...
Yeah. So, I've finished my first feature recently, so hopefully when things get back to normal, we're going to try to get that into some of the festivals, so we'll see.
Well, congrats, man. What's it called?
The first one I can't talk about, secret. I can tell you off air. But the second movie, because they're connected, is the Once and Future Smash, and it's a I'll say documentary. It's a mockumentary about two actors from the 1970s who made a horror movie, and they both take credit for the role. They both play the mass slasher in the movie, which was inspired by a lot of people who argue who played Jason in Part 2 and whatnot. And so they're the first time ever together at a convention, 40 years later. And we filmed it at a convention. It was very cool. Mad Monster let us film there. So we have the whole convention as a backdrop to this, which adds a lot of realism, I think, to it. It's very fun. And I think
it sounds fantastic.
Yeah. It's very good. Yeah, and even Eben, who runs it, let me film a fake panel with the two leads, which was very fun to do.
Dude, that's so fun! I can't wait. That's so fun.
Right. And so the two leads are Bill Wheaton from Kabuki Man and Michael St. Michael's from The Greasy Strangler, which I was very excited about.
Nice. That's so cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it. Very happy about it.
Every year I do Comic-Con, and I'm always like, we got to make a movie here. What are we doing to spend our time?
Right. Yeah, there's so much you can film. And it's like a lot of production value. It was cool because I joke, but it's true. It's like I said, all these years of being nice to people paid off. He let me film there, and a lot of the horror people did cameos for the movie and stuff. So it's exciting.
Damn, I should have been nicer to people.
Well, now I don't have to. Now I can finally stop being nice to people because finally enough of this. Yeah.
Yep. Who are you again? Sorry, don't know you.
So where could people find you? Like not at your home, but where if they want to find you online, what you're doing, where can people find you?
Glass Eye Pix is my company. GlassEyepix, and that's that's the Twitter handle, and that's Facebook, and that's my website, which is where it all starts. You could just go to glasseyepix.com, and that's where we have a daily posting of shit going on, movies of ours, and you can see all the movies we've made, and also be reminded of Tales from Beyond the Pale and other things. So glasseyepix.com is sort of where you can figure out what the hell we are.
Very good. It's been wonderful to have you on, and we'd love to do it again sometime.
Yeah, it's been great.
It's so cool of you guys to find me. I don't quite know why you thought of me, but I appreciate it very much.
Well, I'm not sure why you agreed, but so.
Well, I thought you were someone else. I know there's a guy named you, but you're not. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for thinking of me, and lots of luck to you.
Very good. Thank you very much. There is a Neil Jones that was in Dirty Dancing. You might have thought it was fine. You get to talk.
Damn, I thought maybe I could tell him how much I loved his work.
Nobody Lombardas like that guy.
All right. Take care.
You as well. Thanks for doing this. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
This is Barbara Crampton, and you're listening to Without Your